Hey guys, it's Dr. Banks here, and very quickly we would be continuing from where we stopped the last time as we try in our bits to introduce the concept of SMC and other sub-concepts that are involved in the package, the SMC package, as we further try to make progress and then refine our skills as traders. So today I will be talking about the concept of liquidity. And then I'll try as much as I can to simplify everything that will be talked about today to ensure that you understand me perfectly and very well. Okay, so I would appreciate if I have the best of your attention, as that is all I will be needing in course of this meeting. Okay, and then this should take approximately 30 minutes. Okay, or about 35, 40 minutes, but 30 minutes max will do as we delve into the concept of liquidity. Now, everything I think is required, or everything I think or I consider basic for you to have a fine understanding of SMC, I have clearly listed them out on the screen. Okay, so you can as well begin to read through already as we delve into the concept of SMC and see how we can demystify this concept. Okay, so what is liquidity? Okay, I just discovered I had omitted putting that out on the text. Okay, now prior to this time, when I was introducing other concepts or introducing general concepts, I had talked about liquidity as the fuel that drives price. Okay, liquidity refers to money. Liquidity refers to finance. Okay, and then as far as trading is concerned, when we hear liquidity, what should come to your mind is what? Orders, because money enters the market or money moves in the market through orders. Okay, so when you place your orders or your orders get tagged in or your orders get triggered or whatever the right word you choose to use is, your liquidity has just been imputed as a part of the whole, what we have in the market. Okay, so liquidity simply means money. Liquidity simply means money. Okay, that's what liquidity means. Now, so when we're talking about the concept of liquidity, we're talking about money and where money lies on the chart, where money lies in price. Okay, that's what we'll be talking about as quickly as we can. All right, so it is important to note that liquidity is the fuel or the gas that drives price. Okay, so price would always tap into liquidity to ensure that there is a movement, or before every movement, price will first move to an area where it can tap into liquidity to gain fuel or gain momentum to move to the downside. Okay, now inside of liquidity, we have two types of liquidity. Okay, we have the external liquidity and the internal liquidity. Now, there are some other sub forms of liquidity that I'll be introducing as we make progress in this series. Okay, but then for today, we'll be talking basically about external and internal liquidity because, like I said, these are the two forms of liquidity that I consider key enough. Every other form of liquidity you could study on your way to the top or any of that, but these are the two forms of liquidity that I consider very essential and very important to our growth as SMC traders. And then they are a lot more easier to understand. And since simplicity is like a watchword for me, I will just be working with these two: external liquidity and internal liquidity. Now, what is external liquidity? External liquidity can be subdivided into two. They are buy-side liquidity and sell-side liquidity. Now, when we talked about structure, I told you about major liquidity and then external liquidity, if you remember, right? And then I said major liquidity are liquidities that we expect price to be respected. They are found at every strong highs in a downtrend, and every strong low in an uptrend. That's where we have major liquidities. They're supposed to be respected. And then I told you we have something we call the external or the expected liquidity, where we expect price to take them out. Okay, where we expect price to go through or not respect. Okay, and then instead of that external liquidity, we have two types. We have the buy side liquidity, and then we have the sell side liquidity. Okay, so we'll finish talking about these on text before we move to what we have on the chart. Okay, so the following can be considered as external liquidity. We have old highs as buy side liquidities, and we have old lows as sell side liquidity. Okay, we have equal highs as buy side liquidity. We have equal lows as sell side liquidity. Then we have trend line phantom highs, trend line phantom lows, and general trend line phantom liquidity. Okay, now I said the last three can also be called common liquidity. Okay, the common liquidity is a type of liquidity inside the external liquidity. Okay, now we also have I'm omitting something, internal liquidity. And I said internal liquidity, the fair value gap is the only form of internal liquidity. It is also known as imbalance or inefficiency. Okay, now when I say old highs, what do I mean? Okay, when I say old highs, what do I mean? Okay, in an uptrend, we have this, right? Okay, now when I said old highs, I was simply referring to this. Okay, this was a high, old high. Okay, old high, old high. Okay, so it means it is possible that price can tag into demand here, and I automatically expect that this old high should be taken out as a form of external liquidity to continue the higher high and higher low movement. So this is the simplest form of liquidity, okay, found in old highs. And for downtrends, they are also found in old lows. Okay, old lows as liquidity. Okay, now we can have a more complex structure to this. We can have a more complex structure to this, and then we see price give us this kind of a structure. Okay. Okay, let's assume we had tapped into some level of demand here. Okay, that caused this move to the upside. Okay, this automatically becomes an old high. Okay, which becomes liquidity because price has to take it out at this point in order to tag into a level of supply at this point that causes price to now begin to move downward. Okay, so this automatically became liquidity. The orders that were inside here were now used to forward the movement of this price to the downside. Okay, so the orders inside here are enhanced. We have to go up to validate this level, tap into liquidity, and continue to the downside. Okay, so we could have more examples and more examples, but I'm just trying to give you instances of what I mean by old lows and old highs. Okay, the same thing can be the case for a downtrending market. Okay, the opposite of this can be the case for a downtrending market, old lows and old highs. Okay, so when it is an old high, it is a buy side liquidity. When it is an old low, it is a sell side liquidity. Okay, now I also talked about the concept of equal highs and equal lows. Okay, equal highs are buy side liquidity, equal lows are sell side liquidity. Now, equal highs simply refer to what we call double top in retail trading. Okay, simple double top formation. And okay, they can be used as liquidity okay? And then price run through them and continue to the downside, okay? Sorry, give me a minute. And continue to the downside. Okay, so when this happens, it means we had just liquidated the entries we had or the orders we had on this level, because we'll have retail traders wanting to come in here on a third touch for further sales. So we just had to wick above that level or close above that level and then induce them into thinking that we are buying. But regardless, we are just trying to take liquidity from equal highs and then continue to the downside. The same thing is applicable to the concept of equal lows, okay, as sell side liquidity, which was supposed to be a buy pattern formation, right? Sorry, equal lows, rather. Okay, this was supposed to be a buy formation, and give me a minute. Okay, so we just wick through this bit and then we continue to the upside, creating liquidity at this point. Now, this is what we refer to as stop hunts. Okay, so this can also be called stop hunts. Okay, because these are the times when you feel price hits my stop loss and then continue my direction. They are not trying to hit your stop loss and continue in your direction. They are just trying to grab on liquidity, okay, that should fuel price to move to the downside. That is how price behaves, okay? We grab liquidity to the upside and then we deliver it to the downside. We grab liquidity to the downside and we deliver it to the upside, okay? It is that simple. Now, let me give you a simple illustration of how liquidity works, okay? I had this illustration from Trader Henry when he talked one of those days about liquidity. He said, let's take into instance that I want to go into phone business, the business of selling mobile devices, okay? And then I actually want to sell iPhones. I actually want to begin to sell iPhones, okay? But the amount of money I have with me cannot purchase the bulk of iPhone that I want to begin to retail or begin to sell as wholesale. I cannot sit back and fold my hands and refuse to do business because I do not have money to buy the bulk of iPhone I want to begin to sell. However, I can begin to buy smaller Android devices. Like I can begin to buy Android devices like Bonetail, like Alcatel, like the rest of those small Android devices. Okay, and I begin to retail them to make profits. As I make profits, I am only gearing up so I can purchase the iPhone I want to begin to retail. So I begin to do that until I move to the higher grades of Android devices. I begin to trade Samsung devices. I begin to trade Techno devices. I begin to trade Sony Ericsson devices. I begin to trade other amazing Android devices. I am not still at the point where I want to be. Okay. Now I make sales and then I make profit from those sales until I'm able to gather enough profit to now head towards buying the Android devices, the iPhone devices or iOS devices that I'm actually interested in and actually begin the trade. The same thing happens with liquidity. Okay, price may want to be heading to this direction. Okay, price may want to be heading to this direction, but price will not just run towards this direction. Okay, it starts by creating liquidity, okay, and then delivering is with trend. So all this while, what is it doing? It is trying to buy on the smaller products that are not its target. It is just gathering liquidity, delivering liquidity, tap into liquidity, deliver liquidity, tap buy side, deliver to sell side, tap sell side, deliver to buy side, until it has enough momentum that we now guarantee it to move clearly to the upside. Now, this is not consolidating. We have an actual amazing structure inside of this if you understand the concept of market structure. Okay, so I'm just trying to let you know that what happens in all of these stages are just liquidity. Price is trying to tap into liquidity or absorb liquidity or whatever the term you choose to use. Okay, and then I've said in external liquidity, we are talking about old highs that existed that got taken out, old highs that existed got taken out to continue the trend, or old lows if it's a sell side liquidity. Okay, and I talked about equal highs and equal lows as double tops and double bottom formation, and I said they can also be called sell stop or buy stop. Those are the times where you see your chart patterns for a double bottom, and then price continued your direction, but then stopped you out by hitting your stop loss, and then continuing furthermore in your direction. And then you get confused. They hunted our stop losses. I was already in the trade. Oh, I was making progress. Oh, okay. And then you see a double top formation or double bottom, and then you're okay. So you get in here on. Let's assume you get in here with a single lot or a macro lot, whatever lot you use. I'll use one lot, for example, and then you are moving, and then you break above this area, and then you're further convinced that it's going to buy. So you put in more lots, okay? Extra lots, extra lots. In fact, you call on your friends who are not online. Check out what Step Index is doing. We have an amazing buy move on Step Index, and then you were hitting hard, okay? And then price comes back here to retest this area of liquidity, which is actually a level that should be taken out. Okay, but gives you some sort of impulse to the upside. Okay, and then you call it a triple touch. You go in more positions because of greed, because of fear of missing out, or whatever it is. So everybody's going in mad. Okay, and what happens? We dump all of a sudden. Okay, all of a sudden we just move to the downside, taking out all of that liquidity, hitting stop losses, and then putting all buyers in this position to a loss. Okay, and then as it's going down, some people keep adding more buy positions. That's their issue because of greed. Sometimes it favors you, sometimes it does not. It just keeps going, hits your stop loss, clears all the positions here, and then continues in your direction. And then you begin to cry and you begin to sob. I think one of us sent me an analysis for Step Index, I think, that had read over how many pips in the loss, but later continued in his direction, and then he was excited. It is not something to be excited about, okay? Anybody can predict the direction of the market. It is not the direction of the market that makes you a trader. Price does only two things. It's either it buys or it sells. So anybody can tell you price will buy. It's not enough to say price will buy. Yes, price will buy because we cannot sell forever. The question is, when will it buy? Am I buying at the right time? Am I selling at the right time? That is the question. I think I'm running out of time. Oh, wow. Okay, let's get on the charts quickly. All right, let's talk about trend line phantom, either sells or buys. Okay, your trend line phantom is simply your trend line liquidity. Okay, for instance, you have price trending, higher highs and lows, right? And then you begin to see this happen. Okay. Your trend line phantom refers to this here. Here you have actual trend lines. And you're expecting them to continue, and then price actually continues bearish for a while, but we expect them to be taken out on the long run. Okay, and then visits this level that should cause price to begin to fall. Okay, and then this is where we got the concept some of us call the concept of fake outs. Okay, so we got faked out of the sales only to continue the sales. Okay, so this here is called trend line phantom. Okay, and this is a buy side trend line phantom. Okay, we also have a sell side trend line phantom, which is the opposite of this. Okay, now the trend line phantom, the double top, double bottom, the equal highs, the triple top and triple bottoms, all of those forms of liquidity that are inside of chart patterns are called common liquidity. Okay, because those are the basic liquidity that we expect to see. Okay, now we have internal liquidity, and then internal liquidity simply refer to fair value gaps, inefficiencies, or imbalances. Okay, I have a different series where I'll be teaching strictly fair value gaps, okay, which is not for today. Okay, so very quickly, I'll talk about external liquidity while we get on our charts. And then in our next series, we'll be dealing with fair value gaps as a topic, the concept of internal liquidity or the concept of fair value gaps or imbalances or inefficiencies. Okay, so I want to believe you understand what I had just explained here while we get on the chart very quickly.